When Michael Jordan walked into a small sneaker store in Charlotte, North Carolina, nobody recognized him. He was wearing a worn-out baseball cap pulled down low over his face. Dark sunglasses covered his famous eyes. His gray hoodie was old and had holes in it. His jeans were ripped and faded. He looked like he hadn't showered in days. Michael shuffled through the door with his shoulders hunched, trying to look shorter than his 6'6" height. His hands were stuffed deep in his pockets. Everything about the way he moved said, "I don't belong here." Behind the counter stood Brandon Hutchins, a 28-year-old employee who was scrolling through his phone. When he finally looked up and saw Michael, his face twisted with disgust. "Hey, man," Brandon called out rudely. "If you're looking for handouts, the homeless shelter is 3 blocks down on Morrison Street. We don't have anything for you here." Michael didn't say a word. He just kept walking toward the back wall where rows of Air Jordan sneakers were perfectly displayed. These were shoes with his name on them. Shoes that had made him a legend. And this employee had no idea who was standing right in front of him. But here's what Brandon didn't know. This wasn't just a random visit. Michael Jordan had done this before. Many times. He would disguise himself and visit stores to see how employees treated people who looked poor or homeless. He was testing them, watching to see if they would show kindness or cruelty when they thought nobody important was watching. And today, Brandon was about to face the biggest test of his entire life. Michael's phone buzzed in his pocket, and he pulled it out slowly. The screen was cracked, but the message was clear. "Are you sure about this location? This could change everything." Michael typed back with his thumbs, "I'm sure. Let's see who he really is." What Brandon didn't know was that his boss, Mr. Chen, had written a letter to Michael Jordan 3 months earlier. Mr. Chen had told Michael about his struggling sneaker store that had been in his family for 50 years. He'd told Michael about an employee who had grown up poor, but had a good heart. He'd asked Michael for help, and Michael had agreed to come. He was planning to invest millions of dollars. He was going to create jobs and programs for young people in the neighborhood. He was going to give Brandon a huge promotion with triple his salary. But first, he wanted to see what kind of person Brandon really was. As Michael stood there in his disguise, looking at the shoes on the wall, Brandon's voice got even meaner. "Seriously, dude, you're making customers uncomfortable. Buy something or leave." Michael looked around the empty store. There were no other customers. Brandon was lying. Finally, Michael spoke. His voice was rough and raspy on purpose. "How much are these?" He pointed at a pair of beautiful blue and white Air Jordan sneakers. Brandon actually laughed out loud. $350. That's probably more than you make in a month, right? Michael slowly reached into his back pocket and pulled out an old wallet held together with duct tape. He took out some crumpled $20 bills. "I'd like to try them on," Michael said quietly. "Size 13. Brandon's eyes went narrow and cold. "You're kidding, right? I'm not getting those shoes down for you just so you can waste my time. I know your type. You'll try them on, take some pictures, then say they don't fit." For just a second, you could see Michael's shoulders drop. Even though he was one of the greatest basketball players who ever lived, even though he was worth billions of dollars, those words hurt. But this was exactly what Michael was looking for. He was learning the truth about who Brandon really was. "You're absolutely right," Michael said in that disguised voice. "I probably couldn't afford these anyway." He turned and started walking toward the door, but then he stopped. His hand was on the door handle, but he didn't leave. "Can I ask you something?" Michael said, turning back around. "What made you want to work in a sneaker store?" Brandon was caught off guard. For a second, his mean face softened. I needed a job. I mean, I like sneakers, but why do you care? And then something happened that nobody expected. The door chimed, and a young woman walked in. She was wearing hospital scrubs with cartoon characters on them. Her name was Destiny, and she was shaking with nervousness. "Excuse me," she said to Brandon. "I'm looking for a gift for my little brother. His name is Marcus. He's 12 years old and he has cerebral palsy. He's been through 3 surgeries this year. Basketball is the only thing that makes him smile anymore. I saved up $150. Can I get him something with a Jordan logo? He loves Michael Jordan so much." This was Brandon's chance. This was his moment to be kind, to help someone who really needed it. Michael stood by the door, watching, waiting. What do you think Brandon did next? Did he help the young woman buy shoes for her disabled brother? Or did he say something even worse? And what happened when Michael Jordan finally took off his disguise and revealed who he really was? The answer will shock you. Brandon's choice in that moment cost him everything: his job, his reputation, his future, and something even more valuable that he didn't know he was about to lose. But 6 months later, something incredible happened. Something that proves that even our worst mistakes don't have to be our last chapter. Watch this whole video to find out what Michael Jordan did next, how Brandon's life completely fell apart, and the surprising way this story ends. Because the real twist isn't just about what Brandon lost, it's about what he found when he hit rock bottom. Trust me, but you need to see how this turns out. The bell above the door of Soul Dreams chimed softly as Michael Jordan stepped inside, his 6'6" frame hunched deliberately to appear smaller. A weathered Chicago Cubs baseball cap sat pulled low over his forehead, and oversized sunglasses hid the eyes that had stared down opponents in countless championship games. The gray hoodie he wore had seen better days, frayed at the cuffs, a small stain near the collar, and his jeans were faded and torn at the knees. Not designer distressed. Actually worn. He shuffled rather than walked, hands deep in his pockets, shoulders rolled forward. Everything about his posture screamed invisible. Behind the pristine glass counter, Brandon Hutchins didn't even look up from his phone. His thumb scrolled mindlessly through social media, the glow of the screen reflecting off his face. When he finally glanced toward the door, his expression shifted from boredom to disgust in less than a second. "Hey, man," Brandon called out, his voice sharp with irritation. "If you're looking for handouts, the shelter's 3 blocks down on Morrison. We don't have anything for you here." Michael stopped mid-step. Beneath the sunglasses, his jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He'd heard worse. He'd heard it 100 times before in a dozen different cities, wearing a dozen different disguises. This was the point, the test. Brandon shifted his weight, crossing his arms. "Seriously, dude, this is a business, not a charity." Michael turned slowly toward the back wall, where rows of Air Jordans lined the shelves like soldiers at attention. Each box was perfectly aligned, and each shoe positioned at precisely the same angle. The display was immaculate, a shrine to a legacy that the disguised man himself had built. One game, one championship, one impossible shot at a time. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out with deliberate slowness. The screen cracked across one corner. From Marcus, assistant. "Are you sure about this location? This could change everything." Michael's thumb hovered over the keyboard. Through the dark lenses of his sunglasses, he studied Brandon. 28 years old, according to the background check, grew up poor, worked multiple jobs, finally got this position at a failing sneaker boutique. A young man trying to survive in a world that hadn't been kind to him. But survival didn't excuse cruelty. Michael typed back, "I'm sure. Let's see who he really is." He pocketed the phone and moved closer to the Jordan display, his worn sneakers squeaking slightly against the polished floor. Behind him, he could feel Brandon's eyes burning into his back, could sense the judgment radiating across the small store. His mother's voice echoed in his memory, soft and certain. "Baby, how we treat people when we think nobody's watching. That's who we really are." Brandon made a disgusted sound in his throat. "Are you actually going to buy something, or are you just wasting my time?" Michael smiled beneath his stubble, though no one could see it. The test had begun. Brandon Hutchins had been awake since 4:30 that morning. Keisha's morning sickness had kept both of them up most of the night, her body rejecting everything she tried to eat. He'd held her hair back. He cleaned the bathroom floor, whispered promises he wasn't sure he could keep. "Everything's going to be okay. We're going to be fine." But they weren't fine. The baby was coming in 4 months, and their savings account had $347 in it. $347 between them, and complete disaster. Now, this homeless guy was touching the display glass, leaving fingerprints that Brandon would have to clean. "Seriously," Brandon said, louder this time, stepping out from behind the counter. "You're making customers uncomfortable. Buy something or leave." He gestured broadly at the empty store. There were no other customers. There hadn't been customers all morning. Mr. Chen was talking about closing down, and Brandon would be jobless right when Keisha needed him most. The thought sat in his stomach like a stone. "See these?" He pointed at a pair of Air Jordan these? He pointed at a pair of Air Jordan 1 Retros in the display case, university blue colorway, leather so pristine it looked like it had been painted on. Brandon actually laughed. $350. That's probably more than you make in a month, right? The words came out before he could stop them, sharp and mean. The same words his own father had used on him when he'd asked for new shoes in high school. "You think money grows on trees?" The man reached into his back pocket and pulled out a worn leather wallet, held together at one corner with duct tape. He extracted several crumpled bills, 20s and 10s, folded and unfolded so many times they felt like fabric. "I'd like to try them on," he said quietly. "Size 13. Brandon's eyes narrowed. Something about this felt wrong. The guy's hands, when he'd pulled out that wallet, they were clean, well-maintained. Not the hands of someone living on the streets. "You're kidding, right?" Brandon crossed his arms. "I'm not getting those down for you to waste my time. I know your type. You'll try them on, take some pictures for Instagram or whatever, then say they don't fit. Meanwhile, I've got to repackage everything, and you walk out having gotten your little thrill." The man stood completely still. For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of the air conditioning and the distant traffic outside. Then, slowly, his shoulders sagged. "You're absolutely right," the man said softly. "I probably couldn't afford these." He turned toward the door. "A handle." "Can I ask you something?" The handle. "Can I ask you something?" The man's voice had changed slightly, less raspy, more clear. "What made you want to work in a sneaker store?" Brandon felt something twist in his chest. The question was so unexpected, so genuine, that for a moment his defenses lowered. "I needed a job," he said, then caught himself. Why was he explaining anything to this stranger? "I mean, I like sneakers, but—" He stopped, shaking his head. "Why do you care?" The man turned back around, and even with the sunglasses hiding his eyes, Brandon felt seen in a way that made him uncomfortable. Because I used to dream about working in a place like this when I was a kid, the man said, and his voice carried a warmth that seemed to fill the small store. Just being around the shoes, the stories they tell. Every sneaker is someone's dream, you know? Someone's goal they're working toward. Someone's reward for not giving up. Brandon shifted his weight from foot to foot. Yeah, well, dreams don't pay bills. The words hung in the air between them, bitter and true. No, the man agreed, walking back into the store. Dreams don't pay bills. But sometimes, they're the only thing that keeps us going when the bills are drowning us. Brandon looked away, focusing on a scuff mark on the floor. You sound like a greeting card. I sound like someone who's been where you are. You don't know where I am, Brandon shot back, but the anger in his voice was thinner now, more defensive than aggressive. The man moved closer, stopping a respectful distance away. Tell me about this place. Soul Dreams. How long has it been here? Brandon sighed. Something about this stranger's presence was disarming, like talking to a bartender or a therapist, someone you'd never see again, so the truth didn't cost as much. Mr. Chen's father opened it in 1974, Brandon heard himself saying. Original location, same spot. Mr. Chen took over in the 90s, kept it going through everything, the mall boom, online shopping, all of it. But now, he trailed off, looking around at the immaculate displays, the carefully organized inventory. Now he's talking about closing. Can't compete with the big boxes and the websites. And you'd lose your job. It wasn't a question. Brandon's throat tightened. My girlfriend is pregnant. Due in 4 months. Keisha, she's amazing. She works at the hospital as a nursing assistant, but her hours got cut. We're barely making rent as it is, and now there's going to be 3 of us. And I don't... He stopped abruptly, realizing he was spilling his entire life to a homeless man. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Because you're scared, the man said simply. And sometimes it's easier to tell the truth to a stranger than to the people who depend on us. Brandon felt his eyes burn. He turned away quickly, pretending to adjust a display. I'm fine. You're not fine. Neither is your store. Neither is Mr. Chen, who's probably killing himself trying to figure out how to keep this place alive for employees like you. The man paused. And you're taking all that fear and anger and throwing it at people who walk through that door. I don't. Brandon started to protest. To customer like they mattered. Spent hours customer like they mattered. Spent hours helping a kid find the perfect pair for his first day of high school. When had that Brandon disappeared? I used to be better than this, Brandon admitted quietly. I don't even recognize myself anymore. The man's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen. Brandon caught a glimpse of the message. The film crew is in position across the street. Should we come in? Film crew? Brandon's mind raced, but before he could process it, the man was typing back. What if I told you, the man said, pocketing his phone, that how you treat one person today could change your entire life? That this exact moment, right now, is more important than you could possibly imagine? Brandon laughed, but it sounded hollow even to his own ears. Then I'd say you've been watching too many movies, man. Real life doesn't work like that. In real life, you show up, you do your job, you try not to drown, and nobody gives a damn whether you're nice or not. You really believe that? I know that. Brandon's voice hardened again. I've been nice. I've been patient. I've worked my ass off. And where has it gotten me? I'm about to be unemployed with a baby on the way. Nice doesn't pay the hospital bills. Nice doesn't keep the lights on. The man nodded slowly, and something in his posture shifted. A sadness, maybe, or disappointment. "You're right about one thing," he said. "Nice isn't enough. Kindness has to go deeper than just being polite when it's convenient. Real kindness, the kind that matters, it's what we give people even when we're drowning. Especially then. Easy to say when you don't have responsibilities. Is it?" The man's voice carried an edge now. "You don't know what I have or don't have. You decided who I was the second I walked through that door." Brandon felt his face flush. "Look, I'm sorry if I was rude, okay? But you can't just come in here, dressed like—" He gestured at the man's worn clothes. "People make judgments. That's life." "You're right again," the man said. "People do make judgments, and sometimes those judgments cost us everything." The door chimed. Both men turned. A young woman stood in the doorway, maybe 19 or 20, wearing scrubs like she'd just come from a shift at the hospital. Her eyes were tired but hopeful, and she clutched a small purse against her chest, like it contained something precious. "Excuse me," she said, her voice soft and uncertain. "I'm looking for a gift for my little brother." Brandon felt the man in the hoodie watching him, felt the weight of that gaze even through the dark sunglasses. This was a test. He suddenly knew it with absolute certainty. But a test for what? The young woman took a hesitant step inside, and Brandon could see her hands trembling slightly as she approached the counter. Her scrubs had cartoon characters on them, pediatric nurse, probably, or maybe a nursing student doing clinicals. "My little brother," she continued, her words coming faster now, nervous. "His name is Marcus. He's 12, and he has cerebral palsy. He's been through 3 surgeries this year, and he's obsessed with basketball. It's the only thing that makes him smile anymore. He watches games every single night, even when the pain is bad, and I just—" Her voice cracked. "I saved up $150. I know it's not much, but what could I get him? Maybe something with a Jordan logo? He loves Michael Jordan." Brandon felt his chest tighten. Behind him, he sensed the homeless man had moved closer, silent as a ghost. This was his moment, his chance to be the person he used to be, the person Keisha had fallen in love with, the person his mother had raised. He looked at the young woman, Destiny, her name tag read, and then at her worn purse, probably holding those carefully saved bills. He thought about his own baby coming, about what kind of father he wanted to be. Then he thought about the bills on his kitchen counter, the rent due in 5 days. Mr. Chen's talk about closing. "I get you anything decent here. Maybe check get you anything decent here. Maybe check Foot Locker at the mall. They might have something in your price range." Destiny's face fell. I called Foot Locker. They said they don't carry youth sizes in the Jordans, and the online shipping would take too long. His birthday is this weekend, and after his last surgery, the doctors said— She stopped, blinking rapidly. "Please, isn't there anything?" "Wait." The word came from behind Brandon. The homeless man stepped forward, and his voice had dropped the raspy quality entirely. It was clear now, commanding without being loud. "What's your brother's name again?" he asked Destiny. "Marcus," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "Marcus Williams. He's the strongest person I know. He never complains, never asks for anything, and I just wanted to give him something special, you know? Something that would make him feel like he matters." The man turned to Brandon. "You have youth sizes in the Jordan 11s? He pointed to a pair on the upper wall. Concord colorway, the classic white and black that Marcus probably dreamed about. The price tag read $200. Brandon felt something cold spread through his stomach. Yeah, but she just said she only has 150. I'll cover the difference, the man said. $50. But only if you're the one who helps her. Only if you treat her and her brother the way someone's little brother deserves to be treated. The way someone who's been through 3 surgeries and still finds reasons to smile deserves to be treated. Brandon stared at the man, and then at Destiny, then back again. His mind raced. Who was this guy? Why did he care? What kind of game was this? And why did it feel like the entire world was watching? His pride flared hot in his chest. He was being manipulated. Being tested by some stranger who probably got off on playing hero. Who was this guy to walk in here and judge him? To offer charity like Brandon was some kind of project? You know what? Brandon's voice came out harder than he intended. Both of you need to leave. I don't need some charity case playing hero in my store, and I don't need customers who can't afford what we're selling. This is a business, not a welfare office. Destiny's face crumbled like paper. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Just go, Brandon said, turning away. Both of you. Now. The young woman turned and rushed toward the door, her shoulders shaking with sobs. The bell chimed as she fled into the bright afternoon sunlight. Silence filled the store like water filling a sinking ship. Brandon stood frozen, his back to the homeless man, his hands gripping the edge of the counter. He could feel his heart hammering against his ribs. What had he just done? Behind him, he heard the slow, deliberate sound of sunglasses being removed. You just made your choice, the man said quietly, and his voice carried a weight that made the air itself feel heavier. Now, you get to live with it. Brandon turned around, ready to tell this guy to get out, ready to defend himself, ready to... The words died in his throat. The man stood there, sunglasses in one hand, baseball cap in the other. His face was unmistakable. The high cheekbones, the intense eyes that had stared down Larry Bird, a Magic Johnson, every championship opponent who'd ever dared to challenge him. The face that had been on posters in Brandon's childhood bedroom. Michael Jordan. Oh my God, Brandon whispered. The room tilted. Oh my God, you're... I know who I am, Michael said, his voice calm but carrying an edge like broken glass. The question is, do you know who you are? Brandon couldn't breathe. His legs felt weak, and he gripped the counter to keep from falling. Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan had been standing in his store for the past 20 minutes, and he'd called him homeless. He'd mocked him. He'd thrown him out. I didn't, Brandon stammered, but Michael raised a hand. Save it. Michael set his sunglasses on the counter with deliberate care. I know exactly what you did. I was here for all of it. Mr. Jordan, please. A problem, Brandon. You would have given me problem, Brandon. You would have given me respect because of who I am, not because I'm a human being who walked through that door. Brandon felt tears burning behind his eyes. His career was over. His life was over. Word would get out. Michael Jordan himself had caught him being cruel to customers. No one would ever hire him again. Please, Brandon begged. Please, I have a baby coming. My girlfriend, Keisha, she's counting on me. I can't lose this job. I can't lose everything. Michael pulled out his phone, and for the first time, Brandon noticed how expensive it was. Of course it was. Everything about the disguise had been calculated. The worn clothes, the duct-taped wallet, with the cracked phone screen that was probably just a case. All of it designed to test him. All of it revealing exactly who Brandon had become. Let me tell you a story, Michael said, leaning against the counter with an ease that made Brandon feel even smaller. 3 months ago, I received a letter. A handwritten letter, which is rare these days. It was from Mr. Chen. Brandon's stomach dropped further. Mr. Chen had written to Michael Jordan? In that letter, Michael continued, Mr. Chen told me about this store, about how his father opened it 50 years ago with nothing but a dream and a belief that everyone deserved quality shoes, regardless of their background. About how he'd tried to keep that dream alive, but the world had changed. Online shopping, big box stores, and the little guy didn't stand a chance anymore. Michael tapped his phone screen, pulling up an email. But Mr. Chen also told me about an employee, a young man who'd grown up poor, who'd worked 3 jobs to get through school, who'd finally found a position here. Mr. Chen said this young man had a good heart, buried under all the stress and fear. He said this employee reminded him of his younger self, struggling, but with potential to be something more. Brandon felt like he might vomit. He was talking about me. He was talking about you, Michael confirmed. Mr. Chen asked if I could help, if maybe I could visit the store, see the operation, possibly invest, turn Soul Dreams into something that could compete. A flagship community store where young people could work, learn, grow, where the neighborhood could come and feel valued. The room was spinning now. Brandon gripped the counter harder. I was going to do it, Michael said, and his voice carried genuine sadness. I was going to invest $2 million into Soul Dreams. I was going to create a youth mentorship program, bring in former players, coaches, business leaders. I was going to offer you a management position with triple your current salary, full benefits, college fund for your baby. Brandon made a sound between a sob and a gasp. But that employee Mr. Chen described? Michael shook his head slowly. I didn't meet him today. I met someone who judges people by their appearance. Someone who treats perceived weakness with contempt. Someone who had multiple chances to show kindness and chose cruelty every single time. I can change, Brandon said desperately. Please, give me another chance. I'll be better. I swear I gave you chances. Michael's voice cut through the pleading like a knife. I gave you me, standing there asking to try on shoes. I gave you Destiny, with her beautiful story about her brother. I gave you opportunities to be the man Mr. Chen believes you are. You chose differently. Michael gestured toward the window. Brandon followed his gaze and saw it. A van parked across the street, partially hidden. Camera equipment visible through the tinted windows. I document these visits, Michael explained. My team films them. It's something I started doing 5 years ago after my mother passed. She used to say that character is who you are when nobody's watching. But I realized somebody is always watching. God, the universe, your own conscience. You can't hide from who you really are. Brandon's hands were shaking. What are you going to do with the footage? The good ones become stories of hope, Michael said. We celebrate employees who show kindness, dignity, respect. We help their careers, change their lives, shine a light on goodness. The other videos? He paused. They become lessons about what happens when we forget our humanity. You're going to destroy me. It wasn't a question. I'm not going to destroy you, Brandon. You destroyed yourself. I just happened to be there to witness it. Michael picked up his sunglasses, turning them over in his hands. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't about punishment. It's about consequences. You made choices today. Those choices have results. That's not cruelty. That's just life. Brandon collapsed onto the stool behind the counter, his head in his hands. Through his fingers, He could see his phone lighting up with notifications. Someone had already posted something. The video was probably already circulating. His life was over. "I'm going to be honest with you," Michael said, his voice softer now. "When I walked in here, I wanted to find the man Mr. Chen described. I wanted to help. I wanted to believe that people are inherently good, that stress and circumstances can bury our better nature, but not destroy it." He moved toward the door, then stopped. "You still have that person inside you, Brandon. The one who used to dream about working in a sneaker store. The one who fell in love with Keisha. The one Mr. Chen saw potential in. But you've let fear and bitterness bury him so deep that when opportunity knocked, you didn't even recognize it." Brandon looked up, tears streaming down his face. "So, what do I do now?" Michael put his sunglasses back on, transforming back into someone unrecognizable, just a silhouette against the bright doorway. "That's the wrong question," Michael said. "I'm not the one you need another chance from. You need it from yourself. You need it from Destiny and her brother Marcus. You need it from every person you've judged, dismissed, or hurt, because you were drowning and decided to take others down with you." The door opened, the bell chiming with cruel cheerfulness. "But most of all," Michael added, "you need it from that person you used to be, the one who believed that dreams matter, but even when they don't pay the bills, especially then." Michael Jordan walked out of Soul Dreams. Brandon sat alone in the perfect, pristine store, surrounded by shoes that represented everything he'd once believed in. Determination, achievement, the impossible made possible. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The test was over. He had failed spectacularly, and the whole world was about to know. The first notification came from his cousin in Atlanta. "Bro, WTF, is this you?" with a link to Twitter. Brandon's hands shook as he clicked it. The video had 47,000 views, posted 18 minutes ago by an account called At Street Witness NC. MJ walked into a sneaker store in Charlotte, disguised as a homeless man. Watch what happens next. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Shot from across the street through the store window, Brandon watched himself dismiss Michael, watched himself mock the crumpled bills, watched himself send Destiny running out in tears. The video ended with Michael removing his sunglasses, Brandon's face going white with recognition. The comments were already vicious. At Sneakerhead King, "This employee is trash. Somebody find out where he works and get him fired." At Jordan Fan for Life, MJ was about to bless this whole store, and this idiot ruined it. What a loser. At Destiny W_RN. That was me in the video. My brother Marcus has cerebral palsy, and I was trying to get him birthday shoes. I've never been treated like that in my life. Brandon's phone rang. "Mr. Chen." "Brandon." The old man's voice was heavy with disappointment. "I just received 53 phone calls. 53. Tell me the video I'm seeing is not real." "Mr. Chen, I can explain." "Explain what? That you treated Michael Jordan like garbage? That you humiliated a young woman trying to buy shoes for her disabled brother?" Mr. Chen's voice cracked. "I wrote to him about you, Brandon. I told him you had potential. I told him you reminded me of myself when I was young. I begged him to help save this store, and I used you as the reason he should care." Brandon couldn't speak. The weight of betrayal pressed down on him like concrete. "I'm closing Soul Dreams," Mr. Chen said quietly. "After 50 years, my father's dream ends today. Because of you. Clean out your things. Don't come back." The line went dead. Brandon sat in the silence of the empty store. Outside, he could see people gathering, phones out, pointing at the window. Someone had figured out the location. His phone exploded with messages. To Keisha. Baby, what's happening? People are sending me videos. Is that you? Call me. His mother. Brandon Maurice Hutchins. You better call me right now. Former co-workers. Man, you really messed up. Strangers. You should be ashamed of yourself. Karma is real. Hope you lose everything. People like you don't deserve second chances. Within 2 hours, #SoulDreamsDisgrace was trending nationally. News outlets picked up the story. Michael Jordan's secret test. Employee fails spectacularly. Sneaker store worker mocks MJ in disguise. Loses everything. Brandon's Facebook was flooded with friend requests from reporters. His Instagram became a war zone of hateful comments. Someone found his and Keisha's baby registry and left cruel messages about how he didn't deserve to be a father. By evening, he received an email from the property management company. Due to the disturbance and negative attention, they were terminating Soul Dream's lease effective immediately. Mr. Chen called again, this time just crying on the phone, unable to speak. Brandon walked home in the dark, hood up, avoiding eye contact with everyone. When he opened the door to their small apartment, Keisha was sitting on the couch, her laptop open, tears streaming down her face. Is it true? She asked. All of it. He couldn't look at her. Yes. You treated people like that? That girl with her disabled brother? Brandon, how could you? I don't know. His voice was barely a whisper. I don't know. I don't even know who you are anymore. Keisha stood, one hand on her swollen belly. My mother's been calling. She saw the video. She said I should come stay with her for a while. Keisha, please. I can't look at you right now. She grabbed her overnight bag, already packed by the door. I need to think. I need to figure out if the man I fell in love with still exists, because the person in that video? That's not him. That's someone I don't recognize. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like the end of everything. Brandon stood alone in their apartment. On the coffee table sat the ultrasound photo, their baby, 12 weeks old, a tiny blur of hope that now felt impossibly far away. His phone buzzed again. Another death threat. Another person telling him he deserved to suffer. Maybe they were right. He walked to the bathroom and stared at himself in the mirror. Who was this person? The face looking back was familiar but foreign. Eyes hollow, a jaw tight. Everything about him radiating the bitterness he'd been carrying for months. When had it happened? When had fear turned him into someone capable of such cruelty? He thought about Destiny's face crumbling, about Marcus, a 12-year-old boy fighting through pain, just wanting to feel special on his birthday, about Michael Jordan, a man who'd built an empire on determination and excellence, offering a chance that Brandon had thrown away, about Mr. Chen, who'd believed in him when nobody else did, about Keisha, carrying their child, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. Brandon slid down the bathroom wall, sitting on the cold tile floor. The apartment was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. He sat there for hours, watching the light change through the window, watching the shadows lengthen and disappear into darkness. His phone buzzed one more time. He almost didn't check it. What could possibly be left to say? But something made him look. A notification from an unknown sender. Not email, not social media. A FedEx tracking number. Package delivered to your address. Signature not required. Brandon dragged himself to the door. On the doormat sat a small overnight envelope, the FedEx logo, bright against the white paper. No return address, just his name, handwritten in elegant script. Inside was a single folded piece of paper. Expensive stationery, heavy and cream-colored. At the top, embossed in small letters, Michael Jordan. Brandon's hands trembled as he unfolded the letter. 6 months later, the gymnasium smelled like sweat, rubber, and hope. Brandon Hutchins stood at center court, surrounded by 12 kids ranging from 8 to 14 years old. Their shoes were mismatched, some too big, some held together with duct tape, one kid wearing boots because they were all his family could afford. "Listen up," Brandon called, and the chatter died down. Basketball isn't just about making baskets. It's about how you treat your teammates when they miss a shot, how you handle losing, how you win without making others feel small. A small boy named Terrence raised his hand. "But Coach B, don't we gotta be tough? Isn't that what winners do?" Brandon knelt down to the boy's level, eye to eye. "You know what's tougher than being mean, Terrence? Being kind when everything in you wants to lash out. Being patient when you're tired. Lifting someone else up when you're barely standing yourself. That's the hardest thing in the world. And that's real strength." He'd been volunteering at the South Charlotte Community Center for 5 months now. Every single day. 6 hours after his construction job ended. The only work he could find after everything fell apart. His back ached constantly. His hands were calloused and scarred. He lived in a studio apartment that cost half what he and Keisha had paid before. But he showed up. Every single day. The letter had changed everything. He could still recite it from memory. Every word burned into his consciousness. "Brandon, you asked me for another chance. I'm not writing to give you one. I'm writing to tell you that you never needed my permission. The chance you're looking for isn't something I can give you. It's something you give yourself every single day with every single person you meet. I was cruel to you too, in my own way. I set you up. I tested you without telling you there was a test. But life does that constantly. We just don't usually know we're being tested until afterward. You think you've lost everything. Maybe you have. But I've learned that hitting the bottom is sometimes the only way to remember how to climb. The question isn't whether you fell. It's whether you'll get back up. There's an address below. It's a community center in South Charlotte. They need volunteers for their youth basketball program. No pay. No recognition. Just work. Show up if you want to find that person you used to be. Or don't. That choice is yours, and it always has been. The world will tell you who you are based on your worst moment. Don't believe them, but don't ignore them either. Let their judgment be the weight that builds your strength as you climb back up. Sir MJ. For 3 days, Brandon had stared at that address. 3 days of sitting in his empty apartment, watching his life disintegrate on social media, watching Keisha's texts become less frequent, watching every door close. On the 4th day, he'd walked into the community center. "I'm here to volunteer," he'd told the director, a tired woman named Mrs. Patterson, who looked like she'd heard every excuse in the world. "Do I know you from somewhere?" she'd asked, squinting at his face. "Maybe. I was in a video that went viral. I'm the guy who—" "Oh." Her face had hardened. "That guy." "Yes, ma'am. That guy." Brandon had met her eyes. "I'm not here to make excuses or ask for forgiveness. I'm here to work. If you'll let me." Mrs. Patterson had studied him for a long moment. "These kids have been kicked around by life already. But they don't need someone who's going to look down on them." "No, ma'am. They need someone who knows what it's like to be at the bottom. Someone who's learning how to climb back up. Someone who can show them that your worst moment doesn't have to be your last moment." She'd handed him a basketball. "Be here tomorrow at 4 p.m., miss 1 day without calling, and you're done." He hadn't missed a single day. Now, Watching these kids run drills, seeing them laugh and encourage each other, Brandon felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Coach B! A girl named Aaliyah waved from the three-point line. Can you show us that move again? The crossover? Brandon jogged over, demonstrating the footwork. As he moved, he caught sight of himself in the gym mirror, thinner than before. Tiredness etched around his eyes. But something else, too. Something clearer. More solid. The gym door opened. Brandon glanced up, expecting Mrs. Patterson, and froze mid-dribble. Michael Jordan stood in the doorway, wearing a simple tracksuit. No disguise this time. The kids hadn't noticed yet, too absorbed in their drills. Their eyes met across the gymnasium. Michael walked in slowly, and when the first kid noticed, chaos erupted. "Oh my God! That's Michael Jordan! Is this real?" The kids swarmed him, and Michael laughed. Genuine, warm, the sound filling the space. He signed shoes, took selfies, answered questions about his playing days. For 15 minutes, he was theirs completely. Then he looked up at Brandon and gestured toward the door. Brandon's heart hammered as he followed Michael outside into the parking lot. The late afternoon sun painted everything gold. "Mister, see, Chen told me you've been here," Michael said without preamble. "Every single day. 5 months straight." Brandon nodded, not trusting his voice. "He also told me you've been working construction, sending half your paycheck to help keep his personal bills paid after Soul Dreams closed. That you've been trying to repay the lost investment. $10 at a time." "It's not nearly enough," Brandon managed. "It'll take me years to—" "It's not about the money." Michael cut him off. "It's about who you're choosing to be now." They stood in silence for a moment, the sound of basketballs echoing from inside the gym. "I'm reopening Soul Dreams," Michael said finally. "New name, new vision. Second Step Sneakers. It's going to be part store, part community center. A place where everyone is treated with dignity. Where young people can work, learn, so get mentorship. Where mistakes don't mean the end." Brandon felt his chest tighten. "That's incredible. I'm really happy for—" "I need a manager." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Brandon's breath caught. "Mr. Jordan, I don't deserve—" "Maybe not," Michael agreed. "But deserving isn't the point. Growing is. Becoming is." He stepped closer. "I need someone who understands what it means to fail. Someone who's learned that kindness isn't weakness. Someone who knows that every person who walks through that door is fighting a battle we know nothing about." "But what if I mess up again?" Brandon's voice cracked. "What if that person I was? What if he comes back?" "He will," Michael said simply. "Fear comes back. Stress comes back. Bad days come back. To send someone into the store. They might to send someone into the store. They might look homeless. They might test your patience. They might seem like they don't belong. And you'll never know when it's happening. Can you handle that?" Brandon thought about the letter, about these 5 months of showing up, about Terrence asking what real strength meant. "Yes," he said, and his voice was steady. "Because I won't be treating them right for you, Mr. Jordan. I'll be treating them right because of the man I'm choosing to be now. Every single day, whether anyone's watching or not." Michael extended his hand. Brandon shook it, feeling the strength in that legendary grip. "Welcome to Second Step, Brandon," Michael said. "Sir, this is your second chance, but remember, you're giving it to yourself. I'm just opening the door." 3 weeks later, Brandon stood behind the counter of Second Step Sneakers, his hands resting on the polished surface. The store was unrecognizable from the old Soul dreams. The walls were painted in warm earth tones, and one entire section had been converted into a community space. Tables for homework, a small library of business and motivational books, framed photos of neighborhood kids who'd gotten scholarships. But the sneakers were still displayed with reverence. Each pair a dream, a goal, a story waiting to be written. Mr. Chen had tears in his eyes during the reopening. "My father would have loved this," he'd whispered to Brandon. "This is what he always wanted. A place that served the soul, not just the feet." Now, on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, Brandon straightened a display of youth Jordans, his movements careful and deliberate. His name tag read, "Brandon Hutchins, Manager." Underneath, in smaller letters, "Everyone gets a second step." The door chimed. Brandon looked up, his practiced smile ready, and felt his heart skip. A man shuffled in, hunched shoulders, dirty jacket, beard matted and unkempt. His pants were stained, and he smelled like he'd been sleeping rough. He stood just inside the doorway, looking around with wary eyes. Brandon's pulse quickened. Was this one of Michael's tests? Or was this just a man who needed kindness? It doesn't matter, he reminded himself. Test or not, this is a human being. "Good afternoon," Brandon said warmly, stepping out from behind the counter. "Welcome to Second Step. I'm Brandon. How can I help you today?" The man's eyes widened slightly, clearly expecting to be kicked out. I'm just looking." "That's perfect," Brandon smiled. "Take all the time you need. We've got water bottles in the cooler by the community table if you're thirsty. And hey, we've got some sandwiches left from our lunch program, turkey and cheese. They're just going to go to waste if someone doesn't eat them. You interested?" The man's facade cracked slightly. You're giving me food." "I'm offering," Brandon corrected gently. "No strings. Whether you look at shoes or not, whether you buy anything or not. Sometimes people are hungry. Sometimes I have food. Seems simple to me." The man moved slowly toward the community area, accepting the sandwich with trembling hands. As he ate, Brandon busied himself nearby, not hovering but present, or available. "These for sale?" the man asked, gesturing to the books on the shelf. "Free lending library," Brandon explained. "Take what you want, bring it back when you're done. Or don't. Sometimes a book finds you at exactly the right moment, you know." The man pulled out a worn copy of The Alchemist. "My daughter gave me this. Before..." He trailed off, staring at the cover. "Before things got hard?" Brandon asked softly. The man nodded, tears forming. "Books have a way of coming back to us when we need them," Brandon said. "My mother used to say that. She'd read to me every night, even when we were so poor we were eating cereal for dinner. She'd say, 'Baby, stories remind us that everybody's on a journey, even when it looks like they're standing still.'" They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. The door chimed again. Brandon turned, and his breath caught in his throat. Destiny walked in, wearing the same scrubs as that day 6 months ago. But this time, she wasn't alone. Beside her, in a sleek wheelchair decorated with basketball stickers, sat a 12-year-old boy with bright, intelligent eyes and a smile that could light up the world. Marcus. Destiny stopped when she saw Brandon, her hand instinctively going to her brother's shoulder. Brandon felt everything inside him constrict. This was the moment. The real test. Not a manufactured one from Michael, but the genuine consequence of his actions, walking through the door in the form of a young woman he'd humiliated, and a boy whose birthday he'd helped ruin. He walked toward them slowly, then knelt down so he was eye level with Marcus. "Hi," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You must be Marcus. Yad, your sister told me about you. I'm Brandon." Marcus looked at Destiny, confused. "Is this—" "Yeah," Destiny said quietly. "This is him." Brandon met her eyes. "I owe you both an apology. The biggest apology of my life." He looked back at Marcus. "6 months ago, your sister came into a store where I worked. She'd saved up money to buy you birthday shoes because you'd been through surgeries and she wanted to make you smile. And I treated her terribly. I sent her away. I made her cry." Marcus's eyes widened. "There's no excuse for what I did," Brandon continued. "I was scared and angry about my own life, and I took it out on people who didn't deserve it. I took it out on your sister, who's a hero. And I took it out on you, even though I'd never met you." "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus asked, his voice stronger than Brandon expected. "No, because you deserve the truth. Because your sister deserves to hear me say it out loud. And because—" Brandon's voice cracked. "Because I've spent the last 6 months trying to become the kind of person who would have treated you both the way you deserved to be treated that day. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying." Destiny's eyes glistened with tears. "Mr. Jordan sent me a video," Marcus said suddenly. "After everything happened, he told me about you, about how you were learning to climb back up." Brandon's head snapped up. "He did?" Marcus nodded, pulling out his phone. He showed Brandon a personal video message, Michael Jordan, speaking directly to the camera. "Hey, Marcus, this is Michael Jordan. I heard about what happened when your sister tried to get you birthday shoes. That wasn't right, and I'm sorry you and your sister experienced that. But I want to tell you something important. The man who did that, Brandon, he made a terrible mistake. But he's doing something that takes more courage than playing any basketball game. He's facing what he did wrong and working every single day to be better. Your sister is a hero for taking care of you. You're a hero for fighting through your surgeries and still finding reasons to smile. And Brandon, he's learning to be a hero too. The kind that falls down and gets back up. That's the hardest kind to be. I'm sending you a full collection of shoes, buddy. Every Jordan model in your size. But more importantly, I want you to know, your sister's love for you changed someone's life. That's real power. Never forget that." Brandon couldn't speak. Tears streamed down his face. "Yeah, he's been posting updates about you," Destiny said softly. "Nothing identifying, just stories about a man who's choosing to rebuild. My brother follows them every day. He told me he wants to meet you. The real you. The one Mr. Jordan talks about." "Why?" Brandon whispered. "After what I did?" Marcus wheeled himself closer. "Because Mr. Jordan says that how someone falls down doesn't matter as much as how they get back up. He says you're teaching him that." Brandon looked at this 12-year-old boy, this kid who'd been through 3 surgeries, who lived with pain, who still chose to smile and believe in people. "Marcus," Brandon said, "what if I told you that you and your sister could come here any time you want? What if I told you that there's a whole section of youth shoes, and we have a program where kids who need them can get them? And what if I told you that the first person I want to give them to is you?" Marcus's face lit up like sunrise. "But there's a catch," Brandon continued. "You have to come back and tell me stories. About basketball, about your recovery, about anything. Because I need to remember why this matters. I need people like you to remind me who I'm supposed to be." Destiny covered her mouth, crying openly now. "Can I tell you something?" Marcus said. "When my sister came home crying that day, I was so mad. I wanted to hate you. But then Mr. Jordan's video came, and he said something that stuck with me. What did he say? He said that every person is fighting a battle we can't see, even the people who hurt us. And that forgiveness isn't about saying what they did was okay. It's about not letting what they did control our story anymore. Brandon felt something break open inside his chest, something that had been locked tight for months. Not relief exactly, but release. The weight of shame he'd been carrying didn't disappear, but it shifted, becoming something he could carry differently. "You're pretty wise for 12, Brandon said, smiling through tears. "I have a lot of time to think." Marcus grinned. "Hospitals are boring." The homeless man cleared his throat from the community area. "I should go. Thank you for the sandwich." "Wait," Brandon said, standing up. He walked to the wall and pulled down a pair of practical sneakers. Durable, comfortable, good for walking. "What size are you?" The man looked confused. 10.5. "I'd gets treated with dignity." "That includes gets treated with dignity. That includes getting what they need, not just what they can afford." The man's hands shook as he took the shoes. "Why? You don't know me." "Because 6 months ago, someone gave me something I didn't deserve, a chance to become better. And the only way to honor that is to pass it forward." Brandon paused. "Also, those boots you're wearing look like they're about to fall apart. Can't have that." The man broke down crying, clutching the shoes to his chest. As Brandon helped him try them on, making sure they fit properly, he felt Destiny's hand on his shoulder. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for becoming this person." "Thank you," Brandon replied, "too, for giving me a reason to try." The door chimed again. Brandon looked up, and his heart stopped. Keisha stood in the doorway, her hand resting on her very pregnant belly. 8 months now. Their eyes met across the store. She'd been to the apartment 3 times in the past 6 months. Conversations that were careful, guarded. She was staying with her mother, figuring things out, watching from a distance to see if the change was real or temporary. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," Brandon breathed. She walked in slowly, looking around at the transformed space, at Marcus in his wheelchair, smiling as he tried on shoes, at the homeless man lacing up his new sneakers with tears on his cheeks, at Destiny, wiping her eyes but beaming, at the community table, the library, the photos on the wall, at Brandon, standing in the middle of it all, and wearing a name tag that promised everyone a second step. "This is beautiful," Keisha said. "This is who I remember." "I'm trying," Brandon said. "Every day. I'll probably mess up. I'll probably have bad days, but I'm trying." Keisha walked closer, stopping just in front of him. "I know. Your mother told me. She's been here, hasn't she? Watching you volunteer at the community center." Brandon nodded. His mother had shown up on week 2, arms crossed, judgment in her eyes. By week 4, she was helping him run drills. By week 8, she'd told him, "You're finding your way back. Keep going." "Our daughter," Keisha said, placing his hand on her belly. "I want her to know this version of her father. Not the one from the video. This one." "Daughter?" Brandon's voice broke. "We're having a girl." "We're having a girl," Keisha confirmed, to smiling through tears. "And I want to name her Grace, because that's what we all need, what we all deserve, even when we don't think we do." Brandon pulled her close, holding her and their unborn daughter, feeling the weight of 6 months of climbing finally reach a summit. Behind them, Marcus let out a whoop. "These are perfect. Can I really have them?" "They're yours, buddy," Brandon called back. "Every champion needs the right shoes." The homeless man stood, testing his new sneakers. These are the first new shoes I've had in 4 years. Then they're exactly where they belong, Brandon said. As the afternoon sun streamed through the windows of Second Step sneakers, painting everything in gold, Brandon looked around at this impossible moment, at Grace manifesting in sneakers and second chances, or in a 12-year-old's smile and a girlfriend's forgiveness, in a homeless man's dignity and a dream reborn from ashes. The door would chime again. Another person would walk in. Maybe another test, maybe not. But Brandon Hutchins was ready. Not because he'd arrived, but because he'd learned the most important lesson of all. The climb never ends. You just get stronger. And that was enough. So that's the incredible story of how one rude comment changed everything, and how hitting rock bottom became the foundation for climbing back up. Now, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city and country in the comments below. I love seeing our amazing community from all around the world. If this story touched your heart or taught you something about second chances and treating people with kindness, smash that like button right now. It helps spread this message to more people who need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss stories like this. Stories about hope, redemption, and the power of choosing kindness even when life gets hard. Remember, how we treat others when we think nobody's watching. That's who we really are. So let's spread more kindness in this world, one person at a time. The video appearing on your screen right now has another powerful story you absolutely need to watch. Click on it and keep the inspiration going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.